Welcome back to part 2, doing the floor pans in the 65 Ranchero. Now, I did find some new seats. If you have been following along, I had some seats several months ago. I got into it, wasn't real happy with how things were turning out, so I found another pair of seats. I did already take the factory brackets off, so now they're just flat rails. And now I have to put on some straps to go from side to side, and then we can figure out our mounting. So that's what I plan to do in this video. But real quick, I'll show you what those seats look like. So here are the seats. These are out of a Nissan Xterra. And one thing that I like is how flat they are. And I think this will be a pretty good fit. I will be recovering them to match what I want to do, but I do believe it will be a black interior. So what I need to do now is get it aired up, get it on skates, and I'm going to move it around to where I can get to the driver's side. I gotta get the driver's door off. If you remember in the last video, I used the door dolly, which you can see right there. We will not be using that this time, and I can show you how I removed the door without the door dolly. So give me just a second, I'll get the car moved. You see we got the Ranchero moved to the middle of the garage. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to remove the door using just the jack. First thing we got to do is open the door, and since it's loose, I need to just make sure it doesn't drop. And before I go anywhere, I'm going to get the jack under the door, and I'm going to put it where I think is the heaviest point, or about what I would call the center mass. Now we're just going to remove these bolts. All right, got one more bolt left. So the other method was a little more solid and sturdy, but we do have this off, and we're just going to go ahead and set it off to the side. Now that we have the door off, we're going to remove the seats. We're going to look at the bottom. We're going to figure out how we're going to mount these seats to the floor pan, weld on some brackets, and get that all figured out. We've got the passenger seat out on the table here. We're going to make a piece of 2-inch strap go from here to here, here to here, and you can see these holes. That's where I had to remove the original mounting brackets for the floor of the Xterra. So we're going to make these 18¼ inches. I'll get these welded in place. I'll just get them tacked in place to begin with, and then I'll remove the seat pan. And this is the material that I'm using. I believe it's 1/8 inch thick, 2 inches wide. So I'll get these, I'll cut 4 of these because we'll need 2 for the driver's side, 2 for the passenger side. I will most likely do plug welds, at least one plug weld on the strap to get a good weld, and then we're gonna weld the edge closed. But I'll have to remove some stuff once we get to that point. But for now, I'm gonna do a little bit of paint removal, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut those 4 pieces, and then I'll come back. I wanna walk through this first cut with you guys, and we're gonna go over a couple different things. One, you wanna make sure you've got PPE, and that's personal protective equipment, gloves, glasses, hearing protection. I just need to get that out of the way. But now, some other things to consider are methods of marking the material. And I'll bring you in a little bit closer as we talk about that, because it does matter. Here we have our workpiece, and this is what we're going to mark. So we had already determined that we need 18¼ inches, and that's going to be from this edge over. So I'm going to measure it with just the regular tape measure. Now at this point we have a few different options. Since we're working with metal and we're going to be welding and cutting, this is soapstone, and you can kind of see it does not have a very definitive edge to it. So I bought a different soapstone, which is round, but then I also had to spend some time to shape the end so I had somewhat of a sharp edge to mark. But then we have a scribe, and this is going to be almost a needle point marking. So if you're doing something very precise, then you're going to want something like this. If you're just doing rough cuts, these are going to be just fine. These are basically rough cuts, but I tend to try to make things as close as possible, so I will probably mark with this one, and then I'll come back and mark with this, and maybe we can see the difference. And this tape measure is in metric and standard. I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but we'll mark it with the square. So for what we're doing, this is a pretty good mark. I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, you can see that on the camera there. But if I want to get even more precise, I'm going to see if I can split that line with the scribe. Yep, so now you can probably see that real fine line in between the edges of that mark that I made. And that mark is pretty fine, but if you're wanting to do something really precise, the scribe is the way to go. Now I'm just going to clamp this to the table so it doesn't go anywhere, and then I'm going to cut it, and then I'll move on to the others. I'm going to give myself some room for cutting. I want to be on this side so I can catch it. And again, we're making sure we're wearing our safety glasses, hearing protection. We're going to wear some gloves. The other thing is, since we're using the pieces on that side, I'm going to cut on this side of the line. And I'm not sure if you can see, but I didn't cut right on that line. It's gonna be close enough. I'll square off this edge. I'll also square off that edge before I cut the next piece. But let's see how this fits up to the seat. Yeah, this is fitting just how I wanted it to. Once these are cleaned up and I'm ready to tack them on, we'll come back. As you can probably tell, I'm about to get started welding, so I'm going to show you what we just did and how we are getting ready to do this. You may have already understood that these are going to go on here and I'm going to weld. I mentioned I was going to drill a hole and do a plug weld. That's what that hole is, and that's what that hole is. And this hole and this hole are going to be for the hardware. And I haven't decided yet. I think I'm going to weld a bolt coming through, because when we're up here and there's just not much clearance here, and actually there's a fair amount there. I don't know. This is still up for debate, but we still need to match these holes into that floorboard, and then I need to put some straps under that sheet metal where these holes are going to go. And as I was preparing to weld, I was trying to find a place for my ground, and on these rails there's not a good place to put them, and if I put them on the table right here, that's not going to work. It's not going to conduct electricity from here to here. So it would be convenient if I could put the ground on a spot, say like that. So what I did is I grabbed a multimeter and I put the setting on continuity, and what I'm checking for is to see if this metal here is the same as this metal as far as electrically. So I just put one lead here and one lead here, and that tone tells us that we have continuity from here to here. And I also, just for fun, I checked from one rail to the other, and we have continuity there. The reason I wasn't sure if we were going to have it is because this does slide on this track, and I thought maybe there was an isolator, potentially nylon bushings or whatever. So I did verify that we are good to clamp here, and I'm going to go ahead and clamp this, or get this first piece welded on. And I'm just going to do the plug welds because I don't want to do a lot of welding without protecting the seat, which we should be good with what we're doing. Once these are tacked in place, I'm going to remove this seat pan, and then two things. One, I can finish welding the straps in place, but also we can set the seat in the car and mark the holes. And for what we're doing, we're not going for precision. Really just going to hold I might grab a magnet to help hold it in place. But honestly, I think we're holding good enough. Okay, we got that one tacked in. All right, so you can see we just got that plug welded, all around here. I will put a couple tacks just like I did here before I start actually putting this in the car. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm just gonna hit a couple tacks here, a couple here, and then I will pull the seat pan and we'll get it fitted. I'll mark it, I'll show you all that. I told you guys I would show you more how these Clecos work, and that's the fasteners that I use to hold the front floor pan in place. So all it is, this is the mechanism, and what we're going to do is we're going to push this open. We're going to slide this through an 1/8 inch hole, and these little tangs on the end here are going to draw it up and hold them tight together. So these are really handy if you're doing sheet metal work, or if you're doing any work where you're going to be bonding things together and you want to make sure everything's going to stay lined up. So that's what we're doing, and I'll show you how to get them installed. And I can see I've already moved my sheet metal. You probably can't see it from your angle, but I've already moved this to where it doesn't line up with my original marks. So when we get it where we want it, I'm going to drill a hole. I want at least 2 so it doesn't rotate. So I'm just going to put one right here. Alright, so now that I have this hole drilled, it's drilled through the sheet metal and into this 1x1 structure that I have here. So like I said, we squeeze this, it pushes out, goes in the hole, and now this is holding the sheet metal to this structure. So I'm going to put one more in it, and then I'm going to get the seat pan out and we'll set the seat in place. Well, there you see we have the seat pan, or the seat bottom, disconnected from the seat frame. Now I'm going to set that in here so we can mark the hole locations. Here's where we're at. What I want to do is I want to line this with the edge of this bar that runs along here. That way I can just weld, well, I don't know, I think I should probably still take the strap from underneath and run it from this bar to this bar. But yeah, so I'm going to straighten this up and then I will mark it. Then we will drill some holes and figure out the mounting bracket for the bottom side, but it's looking pretty promising. Okay, I made some small marks. Here's one, and there's one beside this piece of metal, and one here. And you can see I've written some numbers here on the inner rocker, and what these are is this measurement 17 1/4 is from the edge of here to the closest edge of that strap. And basically all I'm going to do with that is once I remove this piece of metal, I'm going to mark out these dimensions, and that's where the strap that I'm going to weld in is going to go. So the edge of this piece of strap is going to be 5.5 inches from here. So what I've decided to do is get those pieces of strap welded in first, and then we'll drill these holes and just drill both of them at the same time. You can see these magnets I'm using them to hold these pieces in place. So we've got one back here, and then I'm just going to do these front two first, and then I'll do the back ones. I'll use a square to square them up, and then I'll go ahead and tack them in place. We have all four straps in place. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this section back in, and then we're just going to drill the holes for the seat, and then we'll check alignment. So that's where we're at this point. Here you can see I've got the pan back in place after drilling. I drilled the holes out to 1/2 inch. I'm putting, I think, 3/8 bolts in here. I've got the holes drilled. I did all the dressing on the back side of the panel, and now it's time to fit the seat here and make sure everything fits. So here's the hardware. Just going to make sure. All right, so this makes me extremely happy. It's been a few days since I last filmed, and I don't remember exactly where I left off other than we were on the passenger side. That seat is now, it's got bolts in it. It's not tightened down, but it is sitting in place where it's going to go. On that side, we went from here, and then from here forward. I ran out of material, so I decided to go this route, and I think this might actually be slightly stronger in case of a front collision. The seat shouldn't be able to go too far forward. So I think this actually in the end is going to be a little bit stronger. I'm going to put the sheet metal in place back over this, and I had already marked it out, and the holes are going to end up falling here and then here. So the next step is to get the sheet metal back in place and then drill the holes. And this here is one good reason to use these Clecos. You're always going to put the material right back in the spot that it was before. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes, and once I have those done, we're going to make sure the seat fits, and if it does, we'll do the same as the other side. We'll get it in place with the bolts through the holes. I have the holes drilled. I went ahead and vacuumed up the shavings, so I'm going to go ahead and remove these Clecos. And here you can see where the holes are, here, 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 and here. So we're fully in the straps, and this is going to be obviously added support for the seat. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum up these shavings. I'll get this back in place. We'll set the seat in and make sure that all the holes are lining up where they're supposed to. So here you can see we've got a hole. We have one back here. Need to finagle. Right there. And one right there. So now that I know these are going to fit, I'm going to go ahead and put the seat cushion back on, put it back in place just like the other one, and get the bolts in place. And I'll probably hand tighten them. Just to verify fitment, I want to be able to articulate the seat and make sure everything's good. As you can see, we finally got the seats mounted. This would be what I would call my number 2 largest hurdle. If you've been watching for any amount of time, I was really struggling on the floor structure and how to construct that, tie the body into the frame. If you're interested in checking out the playlist, I've got that linked in the description below, and also I'll have a card for it. In the next video, we're going to get the floor pans in place. With the exception of this front one, I'm going to have to do some extra work to get the steering column through, get the brake pedal mounted, and the gas pedal. So it's pretty cool that we're actually getting to that point. If you enjoyed this video, maybe check out that playlist I told you about. This went from a 2001 Chevy S10 and a 65 Ford Ranchero that was completely rotted out on the bottom, and we turned it into what you see today. So thanks for taking the time to watch this, and hopefully you found it somewhat entertaining or informational.